and architectural fields, since the present book is regarding the oppression on the Shias at the hands of Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas. The venerable author has not mentioned the above subject scientific and literary advancement. For the interest of the readers, we present below an extract from the book of Dr. Ali Akbar Vilayati, the Encyclopedia of Islam and Iran, Dynamics of Culture and the Living Civilization. After the period of conquests and victories, when the Islamic government became stable and Muslims completed the collection of Islamic sciences to a great extent, some Abbasid caliphs patronized various arts and sciences. Under their patronage, the Islamic society became gradually inclined to those sciences and arts which were practiced by non-Muslim civilizations. The source of this attention was Quran and traditions which encouraged people to learn the different arts and sciences. The greatest impetus for this movement was that the Muslims had annexed the countries practicing these arts and sciences. Like Iran and Rome, these countries were already having their ancient civilizations. But since Alexander the Great had attacked these places 1,000 years earlier, there was influence of Greek culture also upon them. Along with other civilizations, the experience of cultural exchange with the Greek civilization was a completely new experience. As a result of this cultural exchange, there was such an increase of interest in translation of books by the Muslim rulers and intellectuals that this period came to be known as the Age of Translation. Though translation began in the period of Bani Umayyah, its fruits were obtained in the period of Bani Abbas. During the Umayyad period, most of the translations were of books on military, politics, and economics. These translations served as a bridge of communication between the rulers and non-Arabs. The movement, which left behind a large number of translated books on history, sociology, and science, began in the Abbasid period. This intellectual movement continued for 200 years. Especially in the period of Mansur, translations were made in two styles, literal and idiomatic. In the beginning, translation was carried out from Persian to Arabic. The translators of these books were Zoroastrians who had recently embraced Islam. Some books of literature like Qalila wa Dimna were translated by the Iranian writer, Abdullah ibn Muqaffa, died in 141 AH. In the later period, Muslim translators developed this skill to a high level. Based on their experience in this field, they also translated Greek and Syriac books into Arabic. During this period, the first great translator was the Nestorian physician Hunayn ibn Ishaq, who was an expert of Greek, Syriac, Arabic and Pahlavi languages. He was known as the Sheikh of translators. He constituted a group under which translation was carried out in a systematic and organized manner. His son, Ishaq, and his nephew, Habish ibn Asim, were also present. Hunayn compared the translations from the originals and made corrections, etc. Depending on the interest of respective Abbasid caliphs and other factors, there were variations in the number of translators and subject of translation from time to time, especially during the period of Harun ar-Rashid, when the movement of translation could be summed up as follows. A. Period of Harun ar-Rashid. All the translations of this period were centered on scientific books. Yahya ibn Khalid Barmiki made special efforts to recruit competent translators. During the period of Harun, whichever city was conquered by the Muslims, its whole library was transferred to Baghdad. For example, books on philosophy and experimental sciences of Greek, the Book of Euclid, Almagest, and books of Indian medicine were all translated into Arabic in this period. B. Period of Mamun Rashid. During the period of Mamun, on the basis of different interpretations of the Quran, debates and discussions on scholastic theology were at their zenith. During this period, many books of philosophy were translated into Arabic and published. C. Period after Mamun. During the period of Mutawakkil, the work of translation continued. For example, Hunayn ibn Ishaq remained busy in translation, but when Mu'tasim transferred his capital from Baghdad to Samarra, there was a change on translation activities. The main reason for this change was the decrease in the importance of Beit al-Hikmah, which at that time was the most important intellectual organization. D. End of the translation movement. After being successful for 200 years, the translation movement of Baghdad began to decline. And in the beginning of the new Gregorian millennium, it ended completely. Although the end of the movement does not mean that people lost interest in the sciences that had already been translated or that there were less translators. To some extent, the end of this movement was because of the lack of subjects in source languages. In other words, this movement had lost its social importance. Lack of subjects does not mean that other non-religious Greek books were not available, but it meant that there were no more books which were of interest to the intellectuals of this movement. Because most of the arts and sciences have already been dealt in the books which have already been published, and they were better than the books of Greek. The translators who had founded this movement of translation, now instead of supervising the work of translation, began the work of compilation. Due to the stability of the Islamic government and the intellectual advancement of the Islamic society, there were established scientific societies. These societies performed an important role in the dissemination of sciences and arts. The first intellectual organization of this type was Beit al-Hikmah in Baghdad. It was established under the patronage of the government and operated on the grant fixed by the government. It was the center for researchers and translators, especially competent translators who can translate books of Greek philosophy into Arabic. Beit al-Hikmah, which was the first library of Muslims, was established by Harun, although the work of translation had begun in the age of Mansur. During the Abbasid period, when the books of Greek philosophy were translated into Arabic, the world of Islamic beliefs fell into turmoil. Then, to oppose those beliefs, scholastic theology was developed, due to which the Islamic beliefs did not retain their original simplicity. Tawhid now was just a problem of scholastic theology, and also due to the interference in religion by people with political interest. The view proclaiming that all the companions were just came to the fore, and if a defect or mistake of a companion was seen, it was justified to be a mistake of jurisprudence. Al-Awasim min al-Qawasim. In a letter dated the 27th of May 1937, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru wrote to his daughter, Indira Gandhi. These letters were published in book form under the title of Glimpses of World History. The Abbasids were terrific lawmakers. According to common standards, their kingdom was very vast. Where was that old fervor of faith and practical enthusiasm that conquered the mountains and spread like jungle fire to burn up everything? Neither simplicity survived nor that democratic system of governance, and the caliph was not much different from the Iranian emperors whom the Arabs had defeated earlier, or the kings of Constantinople. The Arabs of the period of the Prophet possessed that strange power and life that even the armies of the kings could not face. During the world of their time, they were dignified and always ready to offer sacrifices. And when they rose like a storm and moved forward like hurricane, even the huge armies of the kings fled from their way. The common people were fed up with those rulers, whereas the Arabs brought the message of social reform and public well-being, so they were welcome in every country they conquered. Now such circumstances existed no more. Now the dwellers of the desert enjoyed the luxuries of palace life and fed on the most delicious foods. When their life was a bed of roses, why should they worry about social revolution and reform? They tried to excel the ancient kingdoms in opulence and extravagance. In this process they also became addicted to some of their bad habits. One of their such customs was to confine women to the homes. Now the capital was shifted from Damascus to Iraq. This change of the seat of government was in itself an important factor, because Baghdad was the resting place of the Iranian kings. In addition to this, it was in comparison to Damascus more distant from Europe, as if the Abbasids were more attentive to Asia than they were to Europe. There remained the great struggle for Constantinople and many wars with the European nations. But all these wars were generally of defensive nature. The age of the conquests was not over. Therefore, the Abbasid caliphs desired to strengthen and firm up all that remained of their dominions. Also, without Spain and Africa, it was already a huge kingdom. You must have remembered well the name of Baghdad. That same Baghdad of Harun ar-Rashid and Scheherazade, whose amazing stories are mentioned in Arabian Nights. The city that gained prominence